Week 13, Yahoo Sportsbook Live. Ariel Epstein, welcome back to the show. It's been a couple of weeks. I am excited to chop it up with you today.
Thanks for having me back. Glad that I earned my spot to come back here with you again, Matt.
Oh, please. More than earned it. You earned a lot more good graces with all of the good North Carolina trivia we did before the show starts. But nobody cares about that. What they do care about is the fact that the Falcons, thanks to a pick six right before the half, have actually kept things pretty close here. 20 Buccaneers, 17 Falcons. The current halftime line is -8.5. I mean, for the most part, as I've been able to tune into this game, it looks like, Tom Brady has just been kind of like matriculating the offense down the field. Obviously, that first half ending there for the Falcons, that'll actually keep this game interesting. But so far, I think this does look like a game that the Bucs can and will control in the second half. Other than Cordero Patterson, Mike Davis snuck in for a touchdown, tilting all of those fantasy managers that spent way too much draft capital back on him in August and have gotten absolutely nothing out of it.
Yeah, and I'm loving seeing that this Atlanta game has stayed kind of close after this pick six, because I took the +10.5 in a pick'em contest that I'm in. So I'm hoping Atlanta can keep it close, considering in the last game that these two played in week 2, Atlanta actually kept it close and covered the first half spread. It was the second half where these two just kind of fell off and Tampa Bay took over in the second half of the game. I loved Kyle Pitts again, and Kyle Pitts for his over 56.5 receiving yards was where I was looking. Checking on it now, 4 receptions, 48 yards for the tight end. I love it.
Yeah, he's been obviously a little too easy to take away for the Falcons, right? Like, rookie tight ends typically don't produce big numbers. We know that, like, Kyle Pitts is, like, a different type of beast than most normal tight ends. But, when they lose Calvin Ridley, the fact that they line him up so much outside has been easier for teams to, like, double cover him, to just put the number one corner on him. But Tampa Bay ain't got much going on in the secondary. So I think you're safe on that one. I think you will get the over on that in the second half. I think you can feel pretty good about it. Otherwise, in this game, I mean, Rob Gronkowski gets another touchdown. Chris Godwin has 9 catches for 82 yards on 10 targets. Clear team high 10 targets. And Uncle Leonard Fournette, another touchdown. I mean, this guy has been, like, saving my bacon in several fantasy lineups where I took him in, like, the 8th round, because it's just like, I mean, whatever. I got to make a running back pick here. Might as well take Leonard Fournette, even though I tried to avoid this backfield. Might as well just, I can't really credit myself on that. Some of these, it's like, okay, let me pat myself on the back. Like, I kind of, like I said, fell backwards into the Leonard Fournette pickup. But, hey, it's working out so far.
There's one player who I just always love on Tampa Bay, and that's their linebacker, Devin White. We haven't met yet. I think Yahoo has to set this up, because this has been my favorite linebacker since Ray Lewis. I love Devin White, but from an offensive perspective, I'm in many different Yahoo fantasy leagues season long. Chris Godwin's my guy this week, so I'm hoping he could punch it in, aside for just accumulating the yardage. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. He's definitely due for a little positive touchdown regression. I love Chris. Chris Godwin is like one of my longtime guys. So we were on the same page there once again. Let's keep it moving here. Let's go to Cardinals Bears. I guess we can talk about this game. We can be quick about it. We can be quick about it. Kyler Murray is back. Kyler Murray is good. Good things happening for Cardinals. Boom. Anything else to add?
Congratulations to all of you, everyone who has DeAndre Hopkins, everybody who has Kyler Murray for season-long fantasy. I am glad that after a long month without the two of them, they're back.
Yes, love it. Concise analysis. We're going to do the same here, because I'm waiting for the damn Chargers and Bengals to get into halftime before we talk about that game, because I got a lot of thoughts on that. We're just going to clean up. So, God, Ariel, this early game slate, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, is rough to look at. So Giants at Dolphins, don't really care about that. Don't really care about that. Do you care about anything in this game? Do you have anything to say about this at all?
Back to where I was going in Pick'em, I had Miami -2.5. If they continue to go on the way they are, then let's just keep this thing winning. I mean, this game is disgusting. You have the New York Giants, who don't even have their starting quarterback. Kenny Golladay questionable to return. Miami has all of the players. So if you can't win this game over the Giants, who have nobody aside for Saquon Barkley, who's been disappointing, then I don't know what to tell you, Dolphins fans.
I mean, Saquon Barkley, you mentioned it, 5 carries, 17 yards, 2 catches for -8 yards. Woof.
When you're the only player on the team, of course everyone's going to go after you.
Yeah, Kenny Golladay, I know was out for a couple series in this game. Obviously, they're down Kadarius Toney, they're down Sterling Shepard. Evan Ingram's never going to do anything. So it's tough sledding there for Saquon Barkley. Like, I had him ranked outside my top 15 running backs. By the way,
mentioning Evan Ingram, who messed up my prop. I had the over 3.5 receptions for him last week. He had 2 in the first quarter, ended up with 3 in the game. I hate him.
That's life with Evan Ingram. I feel like Giants fans can attest to that as well. Speaking of New York, the Eagles 24, Jets 18. This is interesting, at least to talk about, Ariel, because obviously Gardner Minshew's had a great first half. How much do we listen? Philly Talk Radio is going to be taking plenty from it. We'll leave that to them. We'll leave that to the Eagles faithful to talk about what this says about Jalen Hurts, what this says about Gardner Minshew. I would just like to remind everybody that he is playing the Jets. The Jets are, how we say in the industry, terrible on the defensive side of the football. Dallas Goedert, shout out to me. I will shout out myself on this one. Played Dallas Goedert in DFS. My brother-in-law texts me about 30 minutes before I'm about to leave the house, at the crack of dawn here in LA. It's like, hey, do I play Dallas Goedert or Dawson Knox? I'm like, buddy, we're playing Dallas Goedert against the Jets with Gardner Minshew. So it's always good when you can stay on good terms with the family by making the correct fantasy calls there.
As long as you're not in the same league as them, then I'd tell you you're a terrible competitor. Otherwise, I'm looking at the Jets side here. The Jets side is where I bet. I actually took the points with New York this week, which is disgusting. But the reason I loved it is because I consider these fishy lines. The way the line moved the point in favor of the Jets, and almost 80% of the money and the bets were backing the other side. They're backing the Eagles. When you see that, that's a big red flag. What do the books know that we don't know? It's the Jets. And then people said to me, well, that's definitely because of the quarterback switch. Really? You're going to move the line in favor of the Jets because of a quarterback switch? No, you're doing it because you believe in the Jets for whatever reason if you're the sports book. 2 missed extra points for the Jets. I mean, that's just unbelievable. Another unbelievable, which you'll appreciate, Elijah Moore, the Jets wide receiver. He has been incredible for the last few weeks in fantasy. Another touchdown.
Absolutely. Got another touchdown early. Zach Wilson also missed him by just a bit, wide open in the end zone for a second touchdown. It did go later to Ryan Griffin. 1 catch, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. Tight ends against the Eagles. It's like, it doesn't, unless it's Evan Ingram. It doesn't matter. You just play tight ends against the Eagles unless it's Evan Ingram. You never play Evan Ingram. This is like, Zach Wilson's probably best game. Best first half for sure. 12 of 14. The Eagles have their issues on defense, so there is that. We'll see about how things go in the rest of that game. Just want to note, too, on the late games, just got this information. Darrell Henderson and Odell Beckham both active for the Rams. We'll talk about that game a little later. There's a lot of fantasy implications with the whole Darrell Henderson situation, and I've got some thoughts. But as I mentioned, I've got thoughts on Chargers-Bengals, which just went to halftime. The current line is LA -6.5. 24-13, the Chargers are up on the Bengals. The Chargers came out hot and fast on this team. Jamar Chase had one of the goofiest looking drops that he batted backwards to a Chargers defender, which there was just 2 turnovers right off the bat for the Bengals. Chargers capitalized on him. Keenan Allen, 2 touchdowns, and he threw a 2-point conversion to Justin Herbert. So if you've been waiting for that positive regression with old Keenan Allen in the touchdown department, you finally got it this week. Chargers really looking like the better team so far over the Bengals in this one. You got thoughts, I know, got a couple props on this game as well.
The prop that I have in the game is for the Chargers running back Austin Eckler to go over 40.5 receiving yards. He's done it back-to-back weeks with 60+. The Bengals allowed the 4th most receiving yards to running backs in the league. The problem here is when the Chargers were up by so much early in the game, I got really nervous because how is Eckler going to catch balls out of the backfield if they're just trying to run clock later in the game? Now that this is close, I like it for the prop better. The other thing here for a live line, I would not be laying 6.5 with the Chargers. The Bengals just came back. The Bengals' only issue today really is that they were without 2 of their starting offensive linemen. That puts a lot of pressure on Burrow, which if you watched last year, you know that's the reason that, sorry for my dogs, that's the reason that the Bengals ended up, so barking dog, Bengals, I guess, for live line. That's what they're telling me.
There we go. The dog, what's your dog's name?
2. One's a boxer named Bailey, and his name's Jax. He's a mix. He's a mutt, but they are the cutest things ever. They're here for the weekend, so it's great. When they bark, it means that you've got to take the dog.
There we go. Jax has spoken. We're with the Bengals on the second half. They get the ball, I believe, in the first half, or they get the ball the first drive in the second half as well. I'm excited. Anti-shout out to me. I gave myself the shout out to me for the Dallas Goedert call. Part of going cheaper at tight end, down at $16 in Yahoo Daily Fantasy with Dallas Goedert, a couple other backup running backs, was like, oh, I can get up to Joe Mixon at $34 against the worst run defense in the NFL. Your guy has 10 carries for 18 yards in the first half. Joe Burrow rushing touchdown. That is not going so well for me so far. But again, we'll see in the second half. We're hoping for more Bengals juice in the second half. Last game in the early slate, Colts-Texans. Colts have 14 points. The Texans have 0. The halftime line is Indy minus 19.5. I'm actually kind of surprised that the Colts aren't winning this game by more, Ariel.
Yeah, well, that's because the Colts are just trying to run clock, clearly. And I read this game wrong, and it was more of like it was a bad prop read by me because I like Jonathan Taylor under 21.5 rush attempts. He's at 19 in the first half. Terrible. I mean, I just completely lost that early, so I don't have to think about it. I just didn't think that the Colts were... Yeah, I mean, I've watched a lot of games against the Texans, and I've seen a lot of the stats, and running backs weirdly don't run that much against them. In fact, no player has had over 20.5 rush attempts against the Texans this year. And Jonathan Taylor, despite how well he's been playing, the thing is, they've just been running him so much, and it's only 14-0 because he's not getting the big burst. His longest run is 15 yards. He's getting it slowly downfield. The other reasons that he's been able to have less carries for more yardage throughout the years is because he's been having these huge 85-yard rushes, which gets the Colts off the field faster. They're killing clock today.
Yes. Yeah, they're killing clock. Hey, listen, they don't want to be spending all afternoon playing the Texans. They're trying to get this thing over with, and I respect that. That is a good strategy. Let's get in, let's get out, and let's get on to Week 14. You got to love when a team doesn't, fall for the trap game stuff. It's like, no trap game against these Tyrod Taylor. Listen, I love Tyrod Taylor, the pride of Hampton Roads, Virginia, but we're moving on. We're moving on to Week 14. We're also moving on to the late slate.
One more thing on that, because you mentioned Tyrod Taylor. So I'm sure you know this too from betting props, and I have always this master list of props, and I have to narrow that down for my Prop Queen segment on Yahoo to about 3 or 4. I had Tyrod Taylor to throw an interception on that master list, and I didn't end up betting it because it's kind of fluky with interceptions. He threw 2 in the first half. It was only minus 120 for Tyrod Taylor to throw an interception in the game. The Colts have had an interception in their last 6 games. 5 out of the last 6, they've had one.
Yeah, 0.8 passer rating for Tyrod in the first half. We're probably going to see Davis Mills again soon this season at some point for the Texans, which I'm not enjoying. But yeah, you can't play Tyrod in fantasy. You can't play any of these. Really, almost can't play any Texans at this point. Viewers are still sending in questions about, should I start Rex Burkhead? It's what year is this? No Texans. # never Texans. Even Brandon Cooks, 0 catches on 3 targets. Those little first 4 games where he was great in fantasy with Tyrod playing pretty well, that was cute, but that's a part of the past. Let's live in the moment. And let's move on from this disgusting early slate. There's a lot more fun games to talk about in the look ahead. And let's start with the Washington football team at the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders are favored by minus 1.5. What do we like in this game? I know you've got a prop for this one as well.
The prop that I like in this game is for the Washington quarterback, Taylor Heinicke, over 15.5 rushing yards. Heinicke has gone over this number against the 2 teams that he's faced bottom 10 in quarterback rushes allowed. And Las Vegas has allowed the 7th most rushing yards to quarterbacks. Heinicke can move in 15.5, something that he's done 6 times this year. I'm all for it. Give me the over.
I like that call a lot. Taylor Heineke has definitely shown a willingness to take off and run. ODU's finest, Taylor Heineke, has actually played pretty well since they got off the bye. My prop in this game that I really like was Antonio Gibson over 17.5 carries. Ariel, Antonio Gibson leads the NFL in carries over the last 3 weeks with 72. They have been riding the hell out of him. The Raiders are not a very good run defense. There's nothing really on the board for Curtis Samuel that I noticed, but I do want to keep an eye on Curtis Samuel's usage in this game, see if they start playing him a little more. Washington has been so banged up this year. Antonio Gibson himself has even been pretty banged up this year. But like they've got Curtis Samuel coming back. They got the pride of Lynchburg, Virginia, Logan Thomas coming back and getting pretty active in the offense as well.
Game
so
2
Washington
for Logan Thomas.
Yes, yes. Washington is getting healthy at the right time. Some of their offensive line injuries, it's kind of tough to work around. Like you look at, I feel like I'm pretty prideful of the fact I know most NFL players, like even backups and stuff like that. But you look at some of these guys on Washington's offensive line, it's like, who the hell are these guys? I've actually seen that the line for Antonio Gibson's rushing yards has even come down to 69.5. So you might want to actually think about, instead of the carries, maybe take the yardage on the hope that he breaks a long run, since it's come down from 71.5 to 69.5. But we move on. We can be quick-ish about this game, but Jaguars at Rams, Rams minus 14. That's a huge line for a team that has lost 3 straight and has been pretty disappointing after a hot start on offense, Ariel, but it is the Jags, so yeah, maybe it's appropriate. I don't know. How do you feel about the line in this game?
If I had to take a side when there's double-digit spreads, I take dogs. I don't like to lay double digits ever, and you don't tease those either. Do not tease a favorite down to within a touchdown. It's not the way that you do teasers. You tease through 3 and 7. You do not tease double-digit spreads. I am very curious for what you were talking about before, Matt, what you said that you have a take on Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson's situation, because I'm dealing with that. I just picked up Sony Michel in a league, and I've had Darrell Henderson as my running back this season. He's active, Henderson, yet he may not be the feature back. What are your thoughts?
Right. The most recent update we got was from Jay Glazer. I saw this morning. This was the quote: Darrell Henderson didn't look like he was going to go. Game time decision. However, the Rams are expecting him to be actually available, as you mentioned. But like you said, not the feature back. That goes to Sony Michel. That's Jay Glazer's quote. Listen, the Rams only have 3 running backs on their active roster. So I kind of feel like this is a situation where Darrell Henderson is an emergency guy. So if you have Darrell Henderson in fantasy, I don't think you can play him under any circumstances. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's active and he doesn't touch the ball a single time, especially if the Rams are coasting past the Jaguars, which we do expect them to do, even if we don't love the minus 14 here for the Rams. I think Sony Michel, if he is indeed the feature back, and again, I'm expecting that to be the case, I think he's like a top 10 running back play. And this is a lesson to all of you people out there. Stash backup running backs this time of the year. Sony Michel was 54% rostered this freaking morning. Like, 54%, that's way too low. He should be 100% rostered. He's the type of guy that we know if Henderson is down, and obviously he's going to mix in here a little bit, but like if Henderson is down, Michel just becomes the starter. Exactly what we got with like Alexander Madison today. So these guys like Sony Michel, think about a guy like Samaje Perine out there, Pirine for the Bengals. You know, obviously we've seen Mark Ingram start for Alvin Kamara there. Like, these guys need to be on your roster because you don't want to have to be out there like playing the waiver wire game late in the week, even early in the week. You want to have that advantage on your roster. Like I said, so this time of year, whoever your like wide receiver 5 is, some goofball that you're never going to start, drop them, pick up a backup running back, and stash them for the upside. Rant over. That's what you need to do to win fantasy leagues, all right? Pay attention, people.
Pay attention to the headlines. Pay attention to the backups. I love the take, though. It's something that I've had to learn as I've been doing fantasy for my whole life. Stash the backups and hope that maybe you're doing it for the right reason, like today with the Rams. And it's true. I told you I picked up Michel this morning. I was amazed he was available.
See, there we go. Yeah. Next time, make sure you do it ahead of time. You know, then you're really in business. Then you don't have to. Then yeah, you always plan ahead, people. Anyways, elsewhere in this game, Odell Beckham, like I mentioned earlier, he's going to be active. That should be pretty exciting. We'll see. He got 10 targets last week, but we just need to see the Rams play a little bit better in this game. So we will monitor that game as well.
Cooper Kupp today. Yeah. OBJ's a decoy today. He had his big game. Time for Cooper Kupp to shine again.
I like that. Cooper Kupp is just banked like 90 yards every single week. 98.5 yards is his receiving line prop. That is pretty interesting to me.
Longest reception prop.
Oh, okay, I like that too. Longest reception prop is at 27.5 yards. That is pretty. That's a long. That's a long catch.
Long catch.
That's a long catch.
And it's the Jaguars.
We'll see if he can get there. It is the Jaguars. We'll see if he can get there. Ariel, let's talk your Ravens. Ravens -4 at Pittsburgh Steelers. Lamar has actually sneaky not played very often against the Steelers, despite the fact he's been there as long as he has, just because, like, injuries, games missed, whatever. How are we feeling about your Ravens in this spot?
I'm feeling nauseous. I don't bet on Ravens sides unless someone tells me. I was told to take Pittsburgh this week by friends. I do not handicap sides in Ravens games. I will handicap props. I love for the Ravens kicker, Justin Tucker, to go over 7.5 points. Last year, Tucker had a bad 2 games against the Steelers. One was because Lamar Jackson didn't play in the second game between these two due to COVID-19. The other one was just ugly. Prior to that, Justin Tucker in 4 of the last 6 games against the Steelers has gone over this number. You got to imagine that the Ravens, if you look at their offensive struggles, you could think the Ravens can somehow get into the red zone, and even if they can't punch it in, well, you've got Tucker, and the Ravens are going to try to win this game no matter what. Even a 65-yard field goal attempt is possible in this one. I also did think about Lamar Jackson rushing yards. It was just a little too high for me at 65.5, so I stayed off. The Ravens struggle a lot against tight ends, so any kind of Pat Freiermuth over his receiving yards is 36.5. The Ravens allowed the second most yards per game to tight ends this year.
You're right about that. They have really struggled against tight ends. Honestly, the Ravens defense has kind of struggled all throughout the course of the year, especially allowing big plays. They've been bottom 5 in both explosive run rate and explosive pass rate allowed. The Steelers also, by the way, since week 8 are bottom 10 in both EPA per rush and EPA per dropback allowed. Like, these two defenses are not what we typically expect, even though the Steelers are on par, like, pretty good. But I kind of feel like this game could go over the 44.5 total here and could be a little more exciting for fantasy than we think. There's a lot of exciting young players on both of these teams. Deontay Johnson is a star receiver. Marquise Brown, by the way, 4.5 catches. I might like the over on that one as well. He has been playing well and been getting a ton of opportunity of late. Let's hit the last game in the late window before we go to the primetime games. 49ers -3 at Seattle. I mean, Seattle is a dumpster fire right now, Ariel. Like, they just signed Adrian Peterson. They're telling Ian Rappaport, this is our win now mode play or whatever. It's like, bro, you're 3-8. You're dead in the water. This is not a win now move, signing Adrian Peterson. So, any optimism about Seattle in this one at all as the home dog here?
I'm so over trying to rely on Seattle. I played the Seattle Seahawks in the Arizona Cardinals game. I bet the line at Seattle +3 or +2.5. No, +2.5 against Arizona before Kyler Murray was announced out a couple of weeks ago. Seattle ends up moving to -4. I lost. And it wasn't because I had -4. I had +2.5. I had the best possible line you could get. And I lost. They got blown out by Colt McCoy and the Cardinals. So I'm over Seattle Seahawks. The only thing I would attack potentially in this game is somehow the ground game. Look to San Francisco running backs like Elijah Mitchell today. The Seattle Seahawks allow the most receiving yards to running backs, which is sad because Deebo Samuel's out for the next 2 weeks. And even though he's a wide receiver, when you check him on like what position he plays, he's really a running back. Come on, Deebo Samuel's the best running back in football right now, except for Lamar Jackson. Why are running backs so bad? I don't know. But the wide receiver and the quarterbacks are doing better than him. Either way, Elijah Mitchell probably steps up more this week. What are your thoughts, though, on Seattle allowing a lot of receiving yards to running backs, but they don't have their best catch passing running back?
Yeah, I mean, you could do like rushing plus receiving yards for Elijah Mitchell at 98.5, and I feel like that kind of covers your basis there because he does at least get some targets out of the backfield. Elijah Mitchell has. Now, they've sort of been in like hit or miss game scripts. Like sometimes they've been in positive game scripts and he's gotten the ball, but other times when they've been in positive game script, they just don't throw him the ball at all. So I do think with Debo not out there, getting some of those passes, like I think they could go to Elijah Mitchell's way. Like they're not going to take my guy Brandon Ayuk and like use him like they do Debo Samuel. They're two completely different players. Like nobody is built like Debo Samuel at the wide receiver position. Nobody runs the ball like Debo Samuel at the wide receiver position. So I kind of feel like if you do the rushing plus receiving yards for Elijah Mitchell at 98.5, that kind of like covers your butt one way or another here. Whether he gets it by the ground, whether he gets it by the air, I feel like you'd be all right there.
I like it. I told a lot of people, make sure Elijah Mitchell is in your lineup this week for season-long fantasy.
Oh, yeah. At this point, he's like a top 5 running back this week and like might be a top 10 guy the rest of the season, given how the position has gone so far. But all right, let's move into the 2 primetime games. Ariel, we've got Broncos at Chiefs Sunday night. Chiefs minus 8.5. Obviously, listen, depending on which Chiefs team we're going to get, that 8.5 could be a pretty big number. I kind of feel like this is a good, Andy Reid, awesome coming off the bye week. The Chiefs have sort of, I think, turned the tide on their season. Where do you fall on this game in particular before we get to my 3 props for the game?
I fall on, thank goodness I bet this line early. I bet this line my first bet of the week back on Monday. Got the Broncos at plus 10.5. I also bet them first half at plus 6. This line's now moved 2 points in Denver's favor. The public is liking Denver, which is what scares me a bit. However, the Broncos have the better defense, and they're an underdog. I'm going to take the underdog getting almost double digits with the better defense, who got back one of their best defensive players, their linebacker, Bradley Chubb. I still like Javonte Williams at running back, even though Melvin Gordon's going to be out for this game. I know you have a prop. I like Javonte Williams over 29.5 receiving yards. The Chiefs allow the 5th most receiving yards to running backs, and against bottom 10 defenses against running backs and their receiving yards, Williams had 33 and 11. So, and that, remember, that's sharing with Melvin Gordon. It's a possibility that Williams can do that, and he's an Eastern North Carolina guy.
Yes, that is true. Shout out to the state of North Carolina on that one. You mentioned it. I love Javonte Williams over rushing plus receiving yards, even if it's a big total at 106.5. Listen, no Melvin Gordon is huge. Javonte Williams, he's been a bit more of like a boomer bust runner than most fantasy Twitter folks want to admit, because like the free Javonte Williams stuff is all out there. But he's top 3 in breakaway run percentage. He's right up there with Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor in that category, and missed tackles forced. I think he can at least get a couple of big plays here, whether it's through the air, as you mentioned, or on the ground. I think we're cooking with gas with Javonte Williams over 106.5 rush plus receiving yards. Ariel, I also kind of like Clyde Edwards-Helaire over 14.5 carries at minus 115. You mentioned it. The Broncos have a good defense, but, Vic Fangio is like the king of the whole 2 high safety zone coverage defense. Like, go ahead and run on us, but we're not going to let you throw deep. And that's what's been giving the Chiefs trouble all year. They definitely turned right back to CEH as soon as he was active the week before the bye. He was clearly ahead of Darrell Williams in the rushing work. I kind of think he can at least get 15, 16, 17 carries in this game just to sort of keep that Broncos defense at bay. How do you feel about this one?
Ooh, yeah, I mean, the thing is for me, and I like the carries approach better than a yardage approach, because at least this is why I love pass attempts props. It's all about the attempt. It has nothing to do with what actually happens if he does it. Yeah, so if the Chiefs end up going up, they're going to run the ball. I just don't like any kind of yardage play. I don't like him for DFS. I don't like him for season long, solely because you've got a pretty good middle of the field for the Broncos defense. Their front seven's really good. Their linebacking core is its strongest. I would just stick with more carries or attempts than I would with any kind of yardage in the run game for the Chiefs.
Agree, yes. It's all about the opportunity to do it, not the effectiveness of doing it, which frankly, that's not been CEH's strength so far through the... Imagine this team with Jonathan Taylor on it. Imagine this team with even like DeAndre Swift on it, in that same draft class. Tough scene for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're taking CEH in the first round. Last prop on this one, I like the under on Mecole Hardman, 2.5 catches. He was clearly demoted prior to the bye week. He was like behind Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson in routes run. It feels like they've finally given up on the whole Mecole Hardman thing. I'm trying to save my record here, which has sort of been trending the wrong way the last few weeks, and I'm taking what I feel like is a pretty good one here with the under on Mecole Hardman at 2.5 catches. But let's move on to Monday Night Football. We've got Patriots at Bills. Bills are -3. I think this is going to be a close, competitive game throughout. I'm really interested to watch this game. It's tough picking props through this one, but I will go ahead and give my 3 for this, and you can just kind of tell me what you do and do not like. I like Stephon Diggs over 60.5 receiving yards. I know it's aggressive because the Patriots are a good pass defense, but Diggs is the one guy who's their best man coverage beater. I think that he at least gets a pretty decent game in this one, and it's 60.5 yards. That's way down from his usual, which is usually up there in the 80s. So give me the over on Steph Diggs there. Also like the over on Kendrick Bourne because it's so low at 44.5 receiving yards. He hasn't been getting a ton of volume, been kind of like a 50-50 snap player, but no Tre'Davious White in this game. I think he could approach around 50 receiving yards in this game. And lastly, I'll take the under on Damian Harris, 51.5 rushing yards. It's a straight 50-50 split with him and Ramondre Stevenson. So give me the under on Damian Harris. I think if somebody's going to get over on this this defense in Buffalo there, I think it will probably be Stevenson. He's the more big play threat. But that's the one I feel the least good about because I can easily see him getting like 60 and just, shoving that right in my face.
I do like the approach to knowing about that run game regarding Stevenson and Harris because that's something I looked at from a fantasy perspective. I have Stevenson. I was between him and a few other running backs on who to bench and who to put in. I left Stevenson out for that reason. It's just so split. You don't ever really get the huge game out of Harris. You'll get it out of Stevenson. So I agree. That run game scares me, but Buffalo has had some games where if they've lost, it's because the run game killed them. What I did in this game early on in the week, which I'm glad I did, the number has gone down by 2 points on the total from 43.5 to 41.5. I teased this game up from 43.5 to 49.5. It's been the way I've been playing the Patriots the last few weeks, and it's been successful. Last week, I had the Patriots at 49.5 for their teased total, and it hit at 49. So I just hit the under by a hook. I love doing this because the book is caught on. The Patriots are a really good defense. They're the best in football, limiting their opponents to just over 16 points per game. The book has made these lines so low on Patriot totals that you lose if you bet the total under. So tease it up. And usually the book is giving you that possession. So I like it.
I like that a lot. That's extremely sharp, and I think that is how this game is going to play out. I'm really looking forward to watching both these two primetime games. They will tell us a lot about the state of the AFC, which, as we know, has been very confusing.
And
so
the
far
AFC
this year.
East.
That is going to... Oh, yes, the AFC East especially. This one, that will be very interesting at the top there between New England and Buffalo. They also, of course, will play one more time before the season ends. That is going to do it for us here in Week 13. We appreciate all of you out there watching. Ariel, we appreciate you being back with us this week. Awesome week. We got a great, this was a slog here in the early portion. We got a lot to look forward to later. So enjoy the rest of the game and good luck in all of your bets, daily fantasy lineups, all that stuff out there.